Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to my guide to Valigarmanda Extreme, or Worqor Lar Dor Extreme. This encounter can be unlocked from the Wandering Minstrel in Tulidisaster after finishing the Dawntrail MSQ. It drops music, a mount, and item level 710 weapons. This guide is broken up into various parts, so to quickly skip around, please use the timestamps in the description. Before pulling Vali, designate light parties and pair stacks. 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS per light party, and 1 DPS and 1 support per pair. You'll need these groupings frequently, and very early in the fight at that. These markers are also quite generic, the ones littered around the arena, but good enough for orientation. I'll make note of some other places that markers might be useful for later in the guide. This is a week 1 video, so I'm sure some things you see will be improved over time. They normally are. Vali's first attack is Spikesicle. The long cast bar will show curving ice rays firing out of the boss for its duration. After these casts finish, ice orbs will fire along these same paths, also placing ice bombs on the field at the same time. These bombs will also explode in the same sequence they were placed. You're basically dodging all the line AoEs and then avoiding the explosions in these weird patterns. If you're hit by this mechanic, it gives you a stacking damage dealt down. It's not too major, and the damage from the explosions is more than survivable, but you probably don't want to be getting damage down stacks like that. Fortunately, there's some very simple movement for this mechanic. As soon as you see the first line go out during the cast, you'll want to go to the opposite side of the room. Then, once the AoEs start firing, you'll want to move back towards the center, though slightly on the opposite side of the big red arrow for the boss's hitbox. From here, you just stay away from the ice explosions as they come out. I move slightly away from the ones in front of me and then move slightly forward so that I don't have to worry about that, all while staying in about the same area so I don't have to dodge any more of those curving AoEs. Regardless of which pattern you get, this movement works, so it's just a matter of flipping it, horizontally. So it's very easy for everyone. This is followed up with Skyruin Fire, which deals large raid-wide damage and places a fire dot on everyone. It also signals a phase change, probably the most challenging part of the fight. Remember those light parties and pairs, because you'll need them a lot here. Another bonus tip, Reprisal, Feint, and Addle near the end of the cast, and it will also last for the next raid-wide after. Once Skyruin Fire finishes, Vali will follow it up with Tri-Scourge for more raid-wide damage. This will also apply an Ice and Lightning debuff to every player, as well as a Fire debuff to the healers. When these expire, they will perform specific attacks, which we'll mention later. Far away from the arena, east and west, you'll see 2 volcanoes off in the distance. At a couple of parts in this phase, you'll get a warning that a volcanic eruption is imminent. One of the 2 volcanoes will begin bubbling, and you'll want to go to the opposite side of the room. Once you're there, stack up tightly, as there will be a few sets of baited AoEs for everyone to dodge right after. Watch your feet and don't get hit. Make sure to dodge these baited AoEs by running either toward or away from Vali, and not back towards the middle of the room. The volcanic eruptions pulse several times, so you'll die if you try going back middle too early. Once the baited AoEs are gone, you'll need to get with your pair partner and react to Vali's next movement. He'll either do a point-blank AoE from his side of the room, a conal AoE, or a donut AoE. You'll need to dodge whichever one it is and stay paired up for a second after, as there will be a pairing check right after with some raid damage. We have Group 1 pairings go west and Group 2 pairings go east. You can also focus target your partner or use markers over your head to designate who your partner is, and you shouldn't have any trouble tracking it. Also make sure you're a few steps away from the other pair, as there is a small AoE explosion. Now, if anyone is dead for this pairing mechanic, 1 or 2 other people are also going to die, and this can quickly snowball out of control. So try to avoid dying during this part, in particular, at all costs. Now, in case you forgot the animations and their tells for Valigarmanda's attacks, the donut AoE is Vali swirling around with the pop-up, a tempestuous wind surrounds Valigarmanda. The conal AoE has Vali charge a breath with the pop-up, blinding energies build within Valigarmanda's wide-open beak. And the point-blank AoE, Vali hovers over his side of the arena with the text, Valigarmanda gathers its strength. That point-blank hits max melee, by the way, so don't be a hero here, be safe. After the pairings go off, either all 4 DPS or all 4 supports will also get an ice marker over their head, indicating the countdown of the debuffs that you got from Tri-Scourge. All this means is you need to keep moving if you're marked. I'd stay moving for a couple of seconds after the marker disappears as well, just in case. If you aren't moving, you will be jailed in an ice tomb and need to be broken out by your party members. It's pretty weak, but you don't want that. Next is Mountain Fire. This attack will summon a Tank Buster tower in front of Valigarmanda, which he will hit 6 times back to back after a brief reprieve. Each tower hit inflicts a burn and fire vulnerability up, so your tanks will need to alternate being hit. Tank 1 gets hit, then Tank 2 gets hit, back and forth until it's over. At the same time, anyone not being hit by the tower will also need to stand directly behind it relative to Vali's position. He'll move his head around between one of 3 positions before each tank hit, and when he hits, does a massive AoE that will destroy everything except what's immediately on the other side in this small cone of safety. Just make sure to line yourself up with Vali's head here and be ready for some toxic movements, like the one you're seeing here. It just goes back and forth on completely opposite sides. It helps being a bit further away from the tower as well, as the cone of safety will be larger further back. Might not be a bad idea to place markers on the 3 spots it's safe in the future. Right after the final hit, both healers' fire markers will begin counting down. This does 3 back-to-back light party damage splits that leave behind fire puddles. We started in the corners closest to Vali with Group 1 West and Group 2 East, then moved towards the middle of the room a bit, then back a bit, all while staying stacked in our light parties. Make sure there's decent mit and healing between each hit, and don't get caught slacking and get burned by the puddles. After the 3 fire puddles, the other group of ice debuffs will go off, so that roll now just needs to keep moving. Make sure to stay around the middle, as another Volcanic Eruption will occur right after. It's the same as the first one, so go to the opposite side, dodge the baited AoEs, group up with your paired partner, and dodge Vali's attack. Right after this, everyone's lightning debuff will begin counting down, which just does damage in a small area around them when it finishes. Just be adequately spread around the room. Finally, Vali will end this phase with Disaster Zone, changing the arena back to normal. After the arena changes back, Vali will cast Ruin Foretold and begin a short ad phase. You'll want to split into your light parties once again, Light Party 1 going west and Light Party 2 going east. Vali will become untargetable and 3 elemental beacons will appear. Your goal is to kill these before his ruinous power gauge fills to full. Vali will also be firing Calamitous Cry over and over while you're killing the beacons. This will shoot several conal AoEs in an alternating pattern, as well as a wild charge at the supports. This split damage wild charge will always target either both healers at the same time or both tanks at the same time, as long as both are alive. These are called wild charges because they actually deal more damage to whoever is the first target hit. So your tanks always want to be closest to the boss for this entire phase. Just bounce back and forth between the same 2 cones of safety next to each nail. Once the east and west nails are dead, both groups can converge into the middle, but stay separated because you still got the wild charges going off. Vali is also gaining damage stacks with each Calamitous Cry, so each wild charge will hit harder and harder. Make sure to pack on some mit when the stacks start getting higher than 3. Once the beacons are all dead, Vali will do 3 back-to-back AoEs after finishing his Tulidisaster cast. The third and final hit is the most important, as this applies a dot that persists for the remainder of the fight. Time your mitts for this to reduce it as much as possible, down to around 4,000 to 5,000 per tick. You can usually do mitts right before the second hit, and it will catch both the second and third attacks. For the next phase, Valigarmanda will start with either Skyruin Storms or Skyruin Blizzard, and his pattern will adjust depending on which he does. First, we'll discuss Skyruin Blizzard. The raid-wide will apply a powerful Blizzard dot as well, which when paired with the permadot you just got, does around 11,000 to 12,000 a tick. Given Vali will also do another Tri-Scourge, you'll want to be extra diligent about mit and healing to make sure the combination doesn't kill anyone. Tri-Scourge will again apply debuffs, 2 ice debuffs on the tanks, 2 fires on the healers, and a lightning debuff on everyone else. The ice and fire debuffs will resolve almost immediately. The ice debuffs on the tanks are massive tank buster AoEs. We just send the tanks towards Vali on their light parties' respective sides. The healers with the fire debuff will do split damage AoEs, so they just stand with the remaining DPS from their light parties near the back of the room as you see us doing here. Once those go off, keep an eye on the back of the room. When the message, a rumbling avalanche, approaches, it will say it's approaching from either the southeast or southwest side. You'll want to stay out of its path. Vali will do one of his 3 AoEs at the same time, so you dodge the avalanche and Vali's AoE at the same time. After Vali's AoEs in this phase, several ice pillars will appear and do 8 omnidirectional line AoEs, leaving just a very small safe spot to avoid them. Fortunately, this safe spot is always in one of 2 locations close to Valigarmanda, on either the east or west side of his inner hitbox. It might be worth placing a marker down for this in the future, though you can always micro-adjust into the spot for a second or 2 before it explodes if you're not 100% sure where it is. Right after this, 4 lightning buffs will begin to count down, just have these 4 players spread from everyone else. After this is Spikesicle, combined with the Avalanche mechanic. Dodging this is nearly identical to the beginning, with one major change. With the Avalanche coming from behind you, you'll either be safe where you normally are, like during the start of the fight, or you'll actually need to double back to the side you came from, following behind the curving AoEs as they whiz past you. Just pay close attention and try to avoid everything. There's not much else to it. After a brief respite, Vali will do one of their 3 AoEs, which you just need to avoid. This then has ice pillars reappear before one more avalanche. It's just dodging all of these mechanics in sequence, so don't fret it too much. Vali will follow this up with freezing dust. You must be moving when the spell finishes casting, and then keep moving for about 3 seconds after. If you stop at any point, you'll be frozen and need to be freed in an ice tomb. Right after this, the remaining 4 lightning debuffs go off, so just spread, and then Disaster Zone comes out and finishes the Blizzard phase. After Disaster Zone Blizzard will be 2 tank busters as well, and then Skyruin Storm if Blizzard was first. For Skyruin Storms, you'll get a dot plus the Tri-Scourge hit just like before. This Tri-Scourge is a lightning and ice debuff on everyone and a fire on each healer. Take note of which of your lightning or ice debuffs is the shorter one, as it will help you determine where to go ahead of time when the debuff is wearing off. Also remember that like in normal, the glowing platforms will lift you up into the air, and this will be important for several attacks. First, just do light party stacks for the healer fire like before, nothing else to it. After that is Hail of Feathers. This will drop 6 proximity AoEs back to back, each spawning a feather that can be attacked. The first one will always start directly east or west, so when you see that one come out, just start on the opposite side of the room. As the feathers hit the arena, you'll want to be rotating around opposite of them, towards Vali and towards the other side of the room. When you get to where the first feather dropped, start killing it while leaning towards the back side of the room. I also recommend taking a step back as the 6th and final proximity AoE goes off to reduce the damage. The fall off is pretty severe if you don't. Make sure that feather you're on is dead rather quickly, as killing it makes a safe spot for the next attack. Vali will begin casting Blighted Bolt. This kills any player lifted by the glowing platforms and strikes every feather with an AoE bolt as well. You'll just want to stand where you killed the feather to avoid all this. Start looking at your debuff timers while this is resolving, because you'll need to handle them shortly. Next, the first round of ice and lightning debuffs will begin expiring. Lightning debuffs do a point-blank AoE, and ice players drop an ice tomb on their location. Lightning players will need to be on the ground to survive, and the AoE from this is a decent bit larger than the previous phases, and even inflicts a short dot, so make sure there's ample space and some min. Ice players, on the other hand, will need to be in the air or they'll be imprisoned. Their ice tombs also need to be far away from each other, or they'll tether and explode on the raid, giving a stacking damage vuln. We broke each pairing from the start of the fight into each corner of the room. So the tank and DPS pairs go towards the front right and front left corners, close to Vali, and the healer and DPS pairs towards the back corners, Group 1 on the west side and Group 2 on the east side. Then the lightning stand on the inner tiles and the ices stand in the elevated corner tiles. This should adequately resolve everything, no problem. Next will be one of Vali's 3 AoEs, though this time with a twist. After they go off, Vali will place an AoE on every player's location a second later. Basically, everyone stack together and move as soon as the AoE goes off, as you see us doing here. Next is Thunderous Breath. This will fire 5 line AoEs from the east and west side of the room, hitting all but one row with lightning. You'll need to find which row is safe and be sure to be on the elevated platform. Vali will also fire a room-wide AoE that hits ground level during this, so you don't want to get hit by that. Right after this is the second round of lightning and ice debuffs, so resolve these the same way. Then there's another Vali attack, so stack up, dodge, and move after the AoE goes off. With this, Vali will cast Disaster Zone and end the Storm phase. After Skyruin Storms ends, there will be a shared tank buster in the middle of the platform. Right after this is a knockback and several AoEs near the back of the room. Either line up the knockback to land in between the back AoEs, or better yet, just knockback resist and ignore it altogether. Next, Vali will use Wrath Unfurled and do raid-wide damage, so make sure to mitt this. He then does Mountain Fire, that Tank Buster Tower plus blocked AoE, and this works exactly the same. After this, he'll begin casting Tulidisaster again, which on the third hit, I believe will instead wipe the party. This is about 11.5 minutes into the fight, but I've never actually seen the third part of Tulidisaster finish casting the second time, so I can only assume that's the final Enrage. If not, it can't be much further after that, because 11.5 minutes is pretty long for an Extreme trial. And with that, you know the entirety of the Valigarmanda Extreme fight. Be sure to like and subscribe. Remember to skip around, check everything you need, and double check it before going into the Party Finder. With that, I'm going to get working on the second Extreme Trial guide. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.